Why does humanity encounter hardships in a spiritual world? So hardships meaning like things that happen in their life. Sometimes it could be very traumatic, sometimes it could be very difficult. How do you interpret that from a standpoint of, like, why do we encounter these things?
This young man over here asked me that question, and I dared answer him, and he told me I was wrong. So I already got that tonight.
Yeah. Also, can you say that ego is attached to it? Because in a sense, how do you grapple with these things if you don't have ego?
You see, I want to explain to you my issue with your issue, but it's a bias. And I don't think it's my bias, I think it's the Rebbe's bias. I teach adolescents, I teach teenagers, I teach young people, I teach him. He's already too old for me. He says, Rabbi, I can't talk to you no more, you became stupid. And adolescents are intellectuals. I had this whole idea, adolescents discover their brain, and they obsess over it. And hopefully at a certain point in our lives, we realize that as important as our brain is, we're not our brain, we're our soul, which is a very different thing. But when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and you're smart, you see the mind and answers to questions, and like you said, making everything fit, making everything right, almost like a god. You're asking a question. It's a philosophical question that may or may not have a philosophical answer, that I may or may not have the answer to, that you may or may not agree or disagree with my answer. Those are 3 reasons for me not to answer you, you see. But the bigger question is, when my students ask me such a question, you know what I answer? Who cares? That's my answer. What difference does it make? And they get really upset. What do you mean? I gotta know. You really gotta know? Is it gonna solve anything? Is the issue understanding the universe? I don't mean this on a physical level. I mean this on a human level. Is the issue understanding? Einstein said, I want to know the mind of God. You can know the mind of God on the level of physics. Maybe you can know the mind of God on the level of chemistry. You cannot know the mind of God on the level of life, human life. It's too complicated. It's too sophisticated. You know what else? It's too personal. It's too painful. I feel. When I say I feel, means I don't know. This is not my opinion. It's my tendency. It's my leaning. That anybody who would ask such a question of the Rebbe would get more or less the following answer. It's really not that important why. It's far more important what we do with it. It's far more important how we manage. I have an answer to your question. I have an opinion, I do. I have a philosophy about people and life and suffering. But the Rebbe that I know never afforded the people the luxury of focusing on that. You would never get away with the Rebbe and saying, Rebbe, my life is terrible. He would he wouldn't let you say it, even if it was true. And believe me, he understood. My uncle was the Rebbe's secretary. He told me the Rebbe got on average 400 letters a day. 400 letters a day. He opened every piece of mail himself. Nobody helped him. He read every letter. And then he chose which ones to respond. He didn't answer everybody, but he read every letter. Most of the letters that Rebbe received were not saying, Rebbe, I won the lottery, here's $100,000. Most of them said, I lost my job, my wife hates me, my kids are estranged. They were tzadis. The Rebbe listened to so much pain on a regular basis. But it couldn't break him, and he would not allow you, forgive me for using this word, the luxury of self-pity. He was so, and you have to understand, he was dealing with the Holocaust generation, who were far more justified in being victims than we are. He never allowed people to end with self-pity. He was very sensitive. He was very understanding. But always, okay, now where are we going? And I think in our generation, we have the luxury of feeling bad for ourselves. And it's a prison, it's a trap. I don't play golf, but I know that in golf they have sand traps. Self-pity is a sand trap. And first of all, it feels very good. Second of all, it's encouraged. It's not advantageous, it's not helpful. What do you mean, I'm not allowed to feel? You can do whatever you want. You can jump off a building. But do you want? Is that what you want? And the Rebbe was a person who told you what he believed. He told you his opinion. You think everybody walked out of the Rebbe's room and said, ooh, I love what he said? People were very angry with him. He told you what he believed, always. And if you didn't like what he believed, so you didn't like it, but he told you. And you're young. I mean, I don't think you're an adolescent, but you're young. But I think you're wise enough to appreciate how slippery a slope this approaches, because you want to live your life. Not wait for life to figure itself out and then to start living. Nobody's life is perfect. Everyone's got stuff. And everybody's got the choice of saying, my life is good but, or my life is terrible but. You want to be in the first group. You don't want to be in the second group. In other words, what I'm saying to you basically is, we'll ask that question when there's no suffering. We will answer that question when Mashiach comes.